practice, of course, this distinction between entering jhana and having entered it is not important. Since the two stages follow each other automatically, what is important is the question, what is the object of the mind at the moment of entering jhana, and just how is the mind involved in that object? As has been explained previously, at the moment when the mind is about to enter jhana, it is engaged in moving towards apana or full concentration. So that apana itself is then the object. This means that the mind, at that time, no longer has as its object any of the three signs, preparatory, acquired, or counterpart. This is an important point. None of the three nimittas, among which the breath is included, serves as an object of the one-pointed mind, or even of the mind which is about to become one-pointed. All three are, however, manifest owing to the power of mindfulness. The mind is not distracted. Energy is present, and the meditator accomplishes the task of entering jhana. This point must be understood well, for it may be regarded as the secret of the attainment of jhana. The meditator should take note of the essential points of the above matter. Firstly, though none of the three signs, the breathing included, is the object of the mind during this step, they are nevertheless still manifest. Secondly, though the mind does not have any of these signs as object, it is not distracted. There is application of energy, and the practice goes ahead smoothly until at last the mind is fully concentrated. It may be wondered how all this is possible. The question may arise, if none of the signs, the breathing included, is the object of the mind, how can they be apparent to it? Or, how can an effort be made to develop the mind, and how can the practice go smoothly when the mind is calm, motionless, and unwavering? This is why the word secret was used, but in fact there is no secret, no trick. It is just that this aspect of the meditation is particularly subtle.
In practice it all goes ahead naturally and in accordance with natural laws. To anyone who has not observed this process closely or has not studied it sufficiently, all this may well seem impossible. When some point cannot be explained directly and easily in words, an analogy may well clarify it. Here we resort to the well-known old analogy of the saw. Imagine a carpenter engaged in sawing wood. The saw is cutting the wood, but the man is not paying any particular attention to the exact point of contact between saw and wood. He is nevertheless clearly aware of himself sawing wood simply because his action of sawing is taking place. We note the following points. 1. The carpenter is aware of sawing even though he is not paying particular attention to the spot where the teeth of the saw are actually cutting the wood. 2. Though the teeth of the saw move back and forth in response to the carpenter's pulling and pushing, still there is unity or one-pointedness in the action of sawing, thus one-pointedness and motion back and forth can be present at one and the same time. 3. The activity of the carpenter goes on without his paying attention to the exact spot where the saw is cutting the wood or to the effort he is making. Even mindfulness is not very actively involved in controlling the effort. Nevertheless, be it noted, effort is being made, precisely as demanded by the task. 4. Lastly, we note that even if the carpenter were to shut his eyes, the wood would continue to be cut and finally would be sawn right through. So the task gets done without the carpenter's paying particular attention to the teeth of the saw, to the action of sawing, to his own effort, or to anything else. There is only mindfulness, watching over the various aspects of the sawing to the extent necessary. These various things being properly coordinated, the task is completed successfully. Each of these 4 points has its counterpart in the condition of the mind approaching absorption.
The wood corresponds to the sign, the point of contact, Sovanna, and the teeth of the saw to the air moving in and out past the sign. The carpenter seeing the teeth of the saw indirectly is the meditator who no longer fixes his mind on breath or image, but yet remains mindful of them. Mindful in an extremely subtle way, the carpenter's lack of attention to the back and forth movement of the saw is the meditator's lack of interest in the breathing. And the counterpart image, both of which are, nevertheless still present, the meditator is simply mindful, thus maintaining the necessary effort to gather in the factors of jhana or apana in that seemingly mysterious way without any conscious intention. The carpenter is not concerned how deep the saw has cut into the wood, his effort is there and the saw just keeps on cutting. Likewise the meditator, not caring about image or breathing, makes no conscious effort whatsoever. And yet his effort continues and the task of attaining jhana progresses smoothly by itself. All this makes clear the significance of the point that neither image nor breath is object of the mind, and yet both are manifest. Once this point has been understood correctly, it is not hard to understand also how it is that the mind at this stage is not concerned with the counterpart image or the breath, that it is not fixed on any of the three signs at all. And that mindfulness operates by itself, watching over the various things concerned with neighborhood concentration, upakara samadhi, making sure they function correctly until full concentration or jhana is attained. To put it another way, mindfulness watches over the different elements so that they are well adjusted, merely standing guard while the different mental activities go ahead automatically. The mental activity concerned here is the process of gathering in the jhana factors. No factor becomes excessively strong, oppressing or dominating the others. The mind is now well trained and well adjusted,
and all the various factors are in perfect harmony. It is for this reason that mindfulness was compared to a charioteer who simply holds the reins while the chariot goes along smoothly until the destination is reached. The point to note is this: right from the very beginning, the object of concentration has been the breathing or one of the other signs. At this point, the situation changes. The mind is no longer fixed on any of the signs, yet the result is the same as if it were so fixed. Mindfulness is able to maintain the various conditions leading to tranquility. Full awareness of the signs is an important feature of developing concentration right from the very beginning. Up to the present point, these objects have always been involved in one way or another. But now in the final step, the situation is different. Out of this last step, it may be said: 1. The mind is not fixed on anything as object. 2. Despite this absence of special attention, everything remains apparent. 3. There is awareness of all the various elements such as the jhana factors, but without any conscious intention. If there were conscious intention, this would imply fixing the mind and would conflict with general awareness. These are the three important points concerning the state of the mind at the time of entering absorption. The next point we shall take up is how the three major groups, namely the 5 jhana factors, the 5 mental faculties, and the 10 characteristics, are directly related to one another when jhana has been attained. When the mind is on the point of attaining jhana, mindfulness gathers all the 5 jhana factors together. And at the moment of attaining jhana, the 5 factors attain full development. At that moment, all the 20 phenomena are present clearly and in full measure. 1. The 10 characteristics will be considered in terms of the 3 groups recognized earlier.
A. The mind is sufficiently purified and free to be able to follow the path to tranquility, samatha, and finally attain it. The mind at this stage is free from the hindrances and endowed with all the necessary virtues, under the supervision of mindfulness. It is without signs or objects of any kind. It has progressed to the stage of absorption. B. The mind reflects on itself as purified, as having attained to a state of excellence. Through mindfulness, and without any conscious intention, the mind is continuously aware of its own condition, until finally it attains absorption, just as the carpenter is all the time aware of the wood being steadily sawn until finally it is cut in two. Thus the mind has abandoned its ordinary, imperfect, unconcentrated state and attained to a lofty state endowed with great virtue. It is said to have grown great because it is above the plane of sensuality. C. The essential feature of this group is rejoicing, which results from having achieved success without intention. When success is thus achieved, rejoicing arises spontaneously, which means that rapture and happiness can arise spontaneously as well. Thus all 10 characteristics in their 3 groups become manifest from the moment the mind attains samatha, that is, from the moment it crosses the threshold of jhana. 2. The 5 jhana factors, though at the moment not directly serving as objects, are doing so indirectly. In other words, although they are not objects, signs, on which the mind is fixed, they are nevertheless objects of the mind's activity of gathering together. In this they resemble nirvana, which, though it cannot, strictly speaking, be considered an object of the mind, nevertheless serves as an object in the sense of something at which the mind is aimed in vipassana, the maturity moment of the insight practice.
So we can say that a meditator to whom the counterpart sign appears in perfect clarity and who guards it successfully is proceeding towards anapanasati, he is engaged in gathering in the jhana factors. When the mind is about to attain jhana, the 5 jhana factors are approaching perfection. And the moment the mind has actually attained it, they are perfected. The jhana factors are involved in the entire practice of tranquility meditation when the mind begins to incline towards jhana, when it is about to enter jhana, and finally when it actually enters jhana. 3. The 5 mental faculties are present in every phase of the practice, being especially well developed when the mind is about to attain jhana, though in such a subtle way as to be imperceptible. Only close scrutiny reveals their nature. The faculty of confidence, sada, becomes the more intense the more the meditator practices and achieves success. As progressively more and more evidence of success appears with each step, so confidence increases. This holds true at every stage of the practice and can readily be confirmed at the stage when the counterpart sign becomes unmistakably evident, or when the mind is sufficiently free from the hindrances to progress towards tranquility. Effort, viriya, is to be applied throughout the practice up to the attainment of jhana, at which point it becomes subtle and delicate and maintains itself quite automatically. Mindfulness, sati, has to be present throughout the entire practice, watching over every step. At the present point, mindfulness has been developed to the highest degree. Concentration, samadhi, has been present ever since the moment the counterpart sign arose. But now, with the appearance of the 5 jhana factors, it is present in full strength. Actually, concentration is present whenever the mind is not distracted, but only as a tool applied to some specific task.
Now, however, it is present in full measure as a result of the successful development of tranquility, samatha bhavana. Henceforth it will become an instrument to aid our practice on a higher level, the development of insight, vipassana bhavana. Nevertheless, even at this stage of absorption, concentration is to be regarded as one of the mental faculties. The last of the mental faculties, insight, panna, has a wide range of functioning throughout the entire practice. Discriminating attention, yaniso manasikara, at any stage, for example in removing the hindrances, is to be reckoned as the mental faculty of insight. It should be clearly understood, what is more, that the practice of concentration is not separate from that of insight. The two are closely related, as the Buddha affirmed by saying, "There is no absorption for one who has no insight." Nat tijna apanasa. Even in the act of fixing the mind on the sign, insight is required. Throughout the gradual progress towards absorption and the final attainment of it, insight is present. The meditator must be fully aware of the approach to jhana, the jhana itself, the individual factors of jhana and the emergence from jhana. To look at it from another angle, insight goes hand in hand with mindfulness, supporting it at all times. Clearly then, insight is present even in jhana. Furthermore, the mental faculties of concentration and insight, normally regarded as things to be developed separately, become inseparable in function. Even in tranquility meditation. To summarize metaphorically, the 5 mental faculties are like the hands doing work, the 5 jhana factors are like the work being done, and the 10 characteristics are like the manner in which the work is done on different levels. This is the nature of the interrelationship of these 3 major groups, which becomes most evident at the moment of attaining absorption.
Chapter 10, the 4 absorptions, having dealt with the state of the mind during the first absorption or jhana. We shall now go on to discuss the remaining absorptions, the second, third, and fourth. The 4 absorptions differ mainly in the number of jhana factors involved. Each higher absorption has fewer jhana factors than the one preceding it and is correspondingly more subtle and calm. The first absorption, containing as it does the greatest number of factors, is the coarsest of the 4. The 5 factors and their characteristics have already been dealt with in detail. Here we need only deal with the way in which these factors are successively discarded and how the increased calmness and fineness of the higher absorptions is developed. First, we must be clear as to just which jhana factors are present in each absorption. In the Pali Canon, which represents the actual spoken words of the Buddha, we find the following account. 1. In the first absorption, pahamajhana, all 5 factors are present: applied thought, sustained thought, rapture, happiness, and one-pointedness, vitakka, vikara, piti, sukha, ekagata. 2. In the second absorption, dutiya jhana, there are 3 factors, rapture, happiness, and one-pointedness. 3. In the third absorption, tatiya jhana, there are 2 factors, happiness and one-pointedness. 4. In the fourth absorption, katutha jhana, there are 2 factors, one-pointedness and equanimity. The account given in the Abhidhamma is somewhat different, but the differences arise merely out of the mode of classification and are in fact of no real significance. Here we shall follow the scheme found in the Sutta Piyaka, believed to be the one taught by the Buddha himself. The first absorption being constituted of 5 factors: applied thought, sustained thought, rapture, happiness, and one-pointedness. It follows that the mind at this stage of absorption has 5 channels of awareness within itself.